I've been attending SydJS for 7 years now. I've been here so many times, one of my favorite meetups in all of Sydney. It's always good to be here. And every time I see half the crowd that I see all the time, but every time we have a lot of new people as well. So I hope you all feel welcome at SydJS if this is the first time. This is one of the best communities in Sydney, and I'm super proud and happy to be here, talking to you about the things I learned. My name is Dinesh. You can find me on X, the handle Dinesh D Pandiyan, and I have a website dineshpandiyan.com. I work at a company called Thinkmill. We are a consultancy. We are based out of Sydney. You can see our website, you can see our Twitter handle, and we work with servers, we work in CI, we work on front ends, build design systems, we build GraphQL servers, and now we are starting to get into AI augmentation. So we are looking to help teams both use AI in the products they build, and we have a few clients where it's happening. And also we are looking to help engineering teams in different companies make the most out of AI. So my journey, especially in the last 6 months, has been mostly dabbling with AI. By dabbling with AI, I mean not using one. I try to use every single out there just to get an understanding of where things are and how to make the most out of it. And I probably wipe coded and threw away so many projects in the last 6 months than I've ever did in the last 10 to 15 years. Other than that, I'm a tinkerer by nature. So there's all my side experiments, they go into this. I run a few servers in my home. They are my side projects. I run a lot of things in there, things that absolutely don't need to be there, but they're there just to kill time. You can see hundreds of systems there. They're absolutely useless, but that's the whole point of exploring things on the side, right? There's joy in the journey, not the whatever you get out of the end of that. So this particular talk I gave 2 months ago about all the things I learned by using AI, the tools what I understood about the different tools, what's available out in the market, how reliable it is, whether we can 100% rely on it yet or not. This week, I went back to my old presentation and wanted to rewrite the same presentation. I had to rewrite half the talk. I think 2 months in AI years is like 7 years. I had some hot takes in there last time when I finished the talk. I don't agree with those hot takes this time because two new frontier models came out, Opus 4.8 and GPT 5.5, they have made me change my opinion on few things that I had back in April. It's kind of both scary but also exciting how fast things can move and change in this AI landscape. All right. Today, my talk is going to be focusing on mostly my discovery and understanding and the tools I use for AI, both at work and in my side projects. I'll also show you some of the projects I've been building, but I also want to take some time and walk through work trees. This is something that has been a complete unlock for me, especially in AI. Cool. So today's talk, I want to give a heads up that a lot of what you see in this talk is my very personal experience, because what I learned, especially in AI tools, is many people I work with, lots of friends, lots of coworkers, they all use similar and different tools. But it always surprises me. All of them get similar outcome and output, but their choice of tooling is completely different. All of them are having same level of quality in their output, but their choice of tooling is different. So whatever you see here today, don't take it as this is what you should be doing or this is what is recommended now. It's more, it works for my workflows. You will have to go through your journey and find out what will work for your workflows. All right, before I get started, I also want to show this a bit. The last 3 to 4 months, there are many, many projects I've been building. I currently have lots of side projects going on. Kitsy, Token Insights. I'm trying to sandbox some projects, and I built a few websites that help me with the tools. Most of these are wipe coded, so I will also be coming from the angle of how good it is to wipe code, but most of the projects at work, there's no vibe coding, right? Because those things, I am responsible for the code I ship. Someone else will question me. The side projects, no one questions me, right? So today's talk will cover both angles, where how much you can completely give it to your model to do your stuff, but at the same time, how much is too much, when you should probably not do too much of that. Throughout this talk, we're going to be covering through lots of terms. Many of you will be probably aware of most of these terms. Some of you, these terms might be new, but some of you might have a different understanding of these terms. So throughout this talk, to make sure you and we're talking about similar things and looking at through similar lens, let's go through our glossary and establish definitions for what these things mean. In fact, this was one of the favorite bits of the talk I gave last time. So this time I'll make sure to move a bit slow here. Now, first thing we're going to go through is model, right? We keep hearing about model. To give a concrete definition of what a model is, it's super simple. Model is just a file, right? So Hugging Face is someplace where open models are hosted. So any model you open, you can open the files part, and you see these safe tensors file. This is usually the biggest part of your model. So the term models, they don't mean anything. They are just a big file that can be loaded into memory, that can take input and give output. However, for that to take input and output, it needs to run on a server. So whoever runs these models, they are your inference providers. So inference providers host models. Models are completely useless if it is not hosted. Now, there are many terms. When you're reading things online, when you're seeing things different places, you'll hear the term model provider. Model provider and inference provider, they're the same terms most of the time. But however, model provider can also be interchangeably used for who is building the model. Opus models are trained by Anthropic. So Anthropic is the model provider for Opus models. However, Opus models are also hosted in AWS Bedrock. You can get your Opus models from AWS Bedrock. You can also get your Opus models from GitHub Copilot. So inference provider for Opus is usually many places. But the model provider is usually the Frontier AI lab that trains the model. But, you got to be a bit loose there, because model provider, sometimes online it means inference provider as well. Cool. Now, this gets interesting with open models like Kimi, GLM, Minimax, Moonshot Lab. They train the Kimi model. They are the model provider, but they get hosted everywhere because they're open model, right? So anyone can host them. Even you can host them in your home, but you need a lot of RAM though. All right. Now we established model and inference provider. Let's take a dive into AI gateway. This is not something you will run into every day, but chances are probably in the future, at least from what I'm seeing, there will be a lot more AI gateways and arbitrage. So the idea here is, there's Vessel gateway, and I'm sure Cloudflare has its own gateway, Open Router, OpenCode Zen. I think OpenCode Go as well. So AI gateway, they do not host models. Unlike inference provider, AI gateways do not host models. What AI gateways do is they have some contracts, tie in with many inference providers, but they sell tokens to users. For example, if I sign up at Open Router, and if I say I want to, use Opus model or Kimi, I won't know where the inference is happening. Based on whoever is pricing the lowest at that point, they will automatically load balance the request. But you get the model you want, so you don't get to choose inference provider. And sometimes that might matter, sometimes that might not. But this is one of those niche things. Usually in work setups, if you're using the tools, you most probably won't be going through an AI gateway unless there is a particular gateway for a particular reason. Yeah. So this is good to know, but it's not relevant unless you're going through tools that use gateway. Now, model router is something I learned in the last 2 months. This was not part of the previous presentation. And you won't see a visualization here for model router. But the idea is model router sits in your inference provider, and it reads your prompts, and based on your prompt, it sends it to the right model based on the complexity. If you've used auto mode in your cursor, it uses a model router. So you don't have to decide which model you want to use. The system will analyze your prompt and send it to the right model based on, oh, this prompt can be handled by this model. This prompt needs a deep reasoning model. The next part is REST endpoints. We all know ChatGPT was launched in 2022. So they were very first in the AI scene. And because of that, the REST interface for AI was more or less standardized by OpenAI. So OpenAI's API spec is widely adopted by most of the inference provider. So wherever you go, you can look at the doc saying, oh, our REST endpoints follow OpenAI's API spec. So now, we saw inference provider. You can use inference provider, make most of, you send an input, it goes through a model, you get an output. You can do that via REST endpoints. That is the first layer of primitive exposed to end users. Now, SDK, as you all know, we all use SDKs all the time, right? This SDK is a wrapper over REST endpoint. Nothing more, nothing less. So the reason I'm going through this is because later when we look at what an agent and what an harness is, it will start making a lot more sense. Because important thing about REST endpoint, fully stateless, right? Single request, input goes, single request, output comes. SDK does the same thing. Now, however, agent is a whole different story, because the term agent has now been, I've seen many places online, interchangeably used for intelligent work, right? I have a chat agent, I have a research agent. So the idea is anything using a model is now usually referred to as agent, but also agent on technical terms. Some of the frameworks that are used to build agents, they mean one thing particularly. And agent is usually a wrapper over SDK. And what I mean by that is the SDK makes single request to the REST endpoints, right? But agent, however, it has tools, tool definitions. You send an input, request goes to the inference provider, response come back. But in the AI world, there is such a thing called turns. For example, if it's easier to show it than do it. All right, let's go here. I'm going to run codex. I'm going to do, what does this project do? All right. Now, when this is an agent running in there, right? When you see working, it means this particular prompt has been sent to the inference provider. But inference provider came back saying, I don't know, I need to look at your files to figure out what it does. And again, the agent will read the files and go back to inference provider. Inference provider with this file, it will analyze and come up with these details, right? And you can always ask this as well. What tools do you have available? So usually, models are trained to make tool calls. They know how tools work. So agent is usually a wrapper over tools, and every request to an inference provider is called a turn. To get you the answer for one input, model needs to do multiple turns. Input, oh, I can't do it yet. I need more info. It will come back. And these are the tools that, this harness will send to the agent saying, this particular codex CLI has these tools available. So model will say, maybe make use of these tools and see what files are available. And again, the agent will send the files available after the tool call. It will go back to the model. If model is happy with the result, it will say, okay, I'm done. This is what my observation is. If it's not happy, it will say, I haven't found out what I need yet. I need more. Maybe use another tool call and find out. So this circular loop is what called as turns. This is what the agentic loop. So going back to the screen, agent is nothing but bunch of tool calls and wrappers, but agent is what converts a single input prompt, doing multiple turns and ending up with final output. So the way you want to look at it is SDK wraps over REST endpoints, agent wraps over SDK. Agents are built with SDK. Now, the bigger part, harness. harness wraps over agent, because all the agent can see is usually a harness is what initializes an agent. It sets up saying, these are tool calls, these are the inputs, this is what you can do. But when the request comes back from the server, there needs to be some software that sends it back to the agent saying, this server came back, this is the turn, this is the turn, right? Agent is harness is a coordinator for the turns. So agent is limited exposure, harness controls the agent outside. At least that's my visual and mental model. Now, this is one of the reasons why what's your context window size? An agent can never answer this question because this doesn't live in agent layer. This lives in harness layer. Harness controls the context window, not the agent. See, it says I don't have visibility. But agent has visibility to tools. So harness instantiates the agent with the things it needs so it can control the model input and output. So I'm running Codex here. Codex is a harness. I'm sure many of you have used or still use Cloud Code or Cloud App. It can be CLI, it can be desktop app, Cursor. They're all harness. They have an agent built in, and the agent uses probably an SDK or directly uses REST endpoints to convert the input you have to the output you see on your screen. Cool. I hope this definition cleared up what's happening in the AOL. So this is what Sharky meant. At any point throughout the presentation, we'll do a bingo today. If there's a term coming in that doesn't make sense, or if you want to have a conversation about the term again, feel absolutely free to raise your hand, pass the session, and we'll walk through the term again, and we'll continue the session. Now that we've gone through this, there are a few important notes that I want to infer from this. Models are absolutely stateless. Models don't remember anything, right? If you use ChatGPT online in the web, you say an input, say hello, right? It will send a response. When you say, again saying, what day is today? Inference provider saves your chats. To the model, inference provider will send the hello chat and what day is today together. Models always take singular input, give you singular output. So whatever server is in middle, it coordinates storing the state. Models are 100% stateless. And that is one of the reasons you will notice that, when it has changed a lot now, especially with the thinking mode and whatnot. Some part of the conversation only ever gets stored in harness in the local. But you can take a complete conversation, completely reset everything, send it back to the model, and you'll get similar output. So you can port an entire session to a different model, and you can see how that other model performs with that entire session, because models are fully stateless. Now, we went through this, so that's why this is in this particular order. Harness wraps over an agent, agent wraps over an SDK. So usually in all the tools, which model, which provider are configurable. But except, nowadays we have tools with lock-in where we can't configure too much. For example, if you're using Cloud Code, you are meant to use it with Anthropic provider. Although you can customize the provider. Many people have tried it, but things don't work exactly the way you want to. And SDK with agent is also often a blood rhyme, because since this term hasn't been well established in a well-known nomenclature, what ends up happening is these terms are interchanged often. And I'll give you a few examples. Here, so, all right. Now, yeah, I think next slide will make it clear, right? Now that we went through these terms, right, now we're going to play a game. It's a guessing game. I'm going to list a bunch of these things. Let's guess if it's a model or inference provider or SDK or agent or harness, whatever it is. Yeah? So, okay, let's just, there's the three here. Either it's a harness or an agent, SDK. OpenClaw. What do you think?
Agent.
Okay. I think it's a harness. That's the whole point, right? So we are too early. These terms are a little bit blurred, and you can get away by calling it both an agent and a harness. Hermes. Same as OpenClaw. The open class harness will kickstart the agent. Cloud Code CLI, harness, Codex CLI. Okay. AI SDK, the one that also Brussels built. Okay. It's in the name, right? Okay. Codex SDK. Ah, that's where I think they recently changed it. Cloud SDK and Codex SDK. If you go back, yeah, look at this. They changed it to Agent SDK. But the idea is, you will notice that it's just called SDK sometimes. Because in their marketing material, they'll say, if you're using Cloud SDK, you can't use our plan. But they only have the Agent SDK, right? So it's a fun game. These terms don't mean anything, but it's easy to get tripped. Has anyone here heard about or used Pi? Good, nice. So now, I'll go back here. All right. This is one of my favorite tools in the AI ecosystem. They have a harness. They have an agent. And they have, this is the agent, I believe, and this is the SDK, I believe. Or maybe BitMe. I haven't explored anything other than coding agent. So open clause built on Pi. But I'm pretty sure they have abstractions where they also provide SDK and they also provide agents. There are many agentic tools out there now. For example, today, I'm super excited about this Flu framework. This launched today. This is now built by one of the founders of Astro. They're with Cloudflare now. So this is built by the Cloudflare team. This is the framework to build agents. If you want to kick something off in Slack saying, hey, go find out why production is broken. You need to build your tools defensively so you don't give any write access, but still, this is how you build agents. And this is super interesting. And outside this, you also have Open Router. Yeah, see? They have a TypeScript agent. If you use Open Router Gateway, you can use Open Router's agent to do that. So the idea is there are many agentic tools out there, but it's easy to get. Up until last month, I didn't know the difference between SDK and agent. And I'm glad I do now, because all the experiments I want to do, I don't want to go anywhere near an SDK. I want to be using the agent. Cool. Now, all right, ChatGPT web app. What do you think it is? Harness or agent or SDK? Cool. Yeah, I don't know either, because most of the agentic work happens on the server. So web app as a client, I would just call it, maybe I'll call the web app as a harness and the server as the agent. Cool. All right. So, this was, AI started, it was not easy for me because I was so familiar with my tools, especially when I tried AI in the very beginning. It was even before Opus 4.5, when it changed how we interact with code. I had a hard time trusting AI because every time there's a problem, in my mind, I'll see a solution. And I will double check with AI. Hey, can you beat me yet? I'll press it to AI and no. And, a few months goes, every time I try to use AI, it would slow me down. But then again, somewhere along, I believe November 2025 or earlier, Opus 4.5 was released. That changed the game because the amount of intelligence that you can get without having to do so many round terms, it sparked something in me. That's when I got fully invested in AI tools to figure out how much can we take here. Yeah. So these are the tools I played around with: Cloud Code CLI, Codex CLI, Open Code CLI, Pi CLI. You might notice a pattern here. These are all mostly CLIs because for my workflows, I spend most of my time CLI. So I only got around to play around with these tools. And these are providers I've used it. I've used Cloud Plans. I still use OpenAI Plan. This is my main now. I've used OpenCode Zen, they're an AI gateway, and I've used Open Router, their gateway as well. And I've used GitHub Copilot. They're okay. It's good to get started. And Fireworks, this is my favorite now. Kimi is one of my favorite open source models, and Fireworks is where I get Kimi the best. It's so fast there. I give in a prompt, I turn and I'll see it automatically. I'll have the output. It is really, really fast. So for comparison, I built a tool to measure how fast AI replies and responses. And OpenAI's GPT model 5.5 high, token per second, the speed, how you measure how quick the response comes out, is around 30, 40. In medium, you'll get 60. Opus is even slower. And this also differs between providers. Copilot is usually where things are slower, but in Copilot, Opus was 7x expensive and 15x expensive. Because of that, no one was using those servers. And because of that, those servers were very fast. So Copilot at one point was faster than actual OpenAI for GPT 5.5. But when I say faster, I was, it's about, instead of 30, 40, I was getting 60 to 70. Fireworks, I was getting 200 tokens per second. It's insanely fast. It's like driving a fast motorbike. So you can look at open models there, but I enjoy using Fireworks for GLM, Kimi, Gemini Flash. So all these models are great there. And also I use Google AI Studio. I haven't tried Vertex AI yet, but I'm sure most work settings use Vertex AI. But Google AI Studio is where I get my 3.5 Flash from. That's my trusty model now. I use 3.5 Flash whenever I'm dealing with text, which is writing a PR, reviewing a PR, writing review comments, writing posts, Confluence, docs. Anytime writing is involved, I use Gemini 3.5. It's insanely good. And I can also relate because most of the Gemini models, I believe, were trained on research material. So the vocabulary in Gemini models is very, very good. Admittedly, the poorest model for vocabulary is GPT 5.5, which is my everyday model. So yeah, I tried these closed models and I tried these open models and oh, this is the timer below. Last time I set a timer for 20 minutes and the talk went for 40 minutes. This time I thought I would not extend more than 30 minutes. There's so much to help. All right. Now, from all my experience and by experiments with these tools, for example, I showed around all the providers and models I use, right? So there are so many open things I built. And I really, really want to show this as well because I put in some effort building this. Come on. Yeah. This is just this month's usage. I burned 300 million tokens on Codex, 4 mil on open code, and it's only 2 weeks there. So I've really been burning tokens, not because I have to, only because I want to find out how much I can push AI and figure out where the right balance for good is. So probably 80% of these tokens were burned on experiments that didn't amount to anything. So from what I found from burning all these tokens is choice of harness doesn't usually matter. There are niche use cases, but at the end of the day, choice of harness is a very personal opinion. It's usually reflects the type of tools you use, what you want to do. Although there is an asterisk there because at the end of the day, quality of input will define the quality of output. As they say, garbage in, garbage out. So system prompts play a big factor in quality harness. You might have noticed if you used Cloud Code and other harnesses as well. Cloud Code is really, really good at building good user interfaces. That's very pretty HTML output. If you try to do the same with other harnesses or other models, it's not that good because two factors play in there, one model pre-training and system prompts. One, Opus models are pre-trained to do really good in pretty interfaces and they understand the browser's mental model, interface's mental model better than other models. But also, you can always feed in a really deliberate prompt. I've seen some open source skills that make GPT 5.5's output heaps better than Opus output, even though Opus model is pre-trained to be better than GPT for user interfaces. So at the end of the day, the default experience you get out of the harnesses, they usually don't matter unless you're reliant on system prompts. So all harnesses are mostly the same. Which inference provider where you get your models from, they start to matter when you're doing things at scale. Because today morning, I was going to run into a meeting and my PR was blocked So I had two other ideas in the backlog. I kickstarted a session, two different sessions to go explore that idea, go find something. What do I like ideating with models or harnesses using as a sparring partner. I came back in 20 minutes, it was done. But if I used a different inference provider, that would have taken 50 minutes. So usually, inference provider mostly impacts in two parts. One, prompt caching. Prompt caching defines both speed and also how much you incur as cost for inference. And second part is speed, how good your servers are. So a good inference provider consistently provide this, your speed at which how you get the responses are consistent. But sometimes, especially in the last few months, well, yeah, I had a stumbling time with Anthropic provider because they had some difficulties early in the month. So tokens will be slow, tokens won't come back. And I used Copilot for a bit. Some models, some servers on Copilots, they were super slow. But then the expensive models, they're super fast. I can guess that's because of it's expensive, not many people are using those servers. And also, we are in Australia, the other part of the world. When I'm using OpenAI subscription, my mornings are my favorite time. Before lunch, I'd be ripping the sessions. And then if it's 3 p.m. or 4 p.m., I have to be looking at my terminal for 15 minutes to get a single output. So server quality is what defines inference provider quality. So if your work relies on getting things done quicker, if you're doing multitude of work, let's say you're spinning up 100 sessions to do something like scout through your GitHub issues, your inference provider will definitely matter there. Now, at the end of the day, this is like 99% of what defines the quality of output you get. So choice of model is the ultimate end game. Although I want to call it out that bigger, better, more expensive deep reasoning model is not best for everything, because at the end of the day, it comes to the right tool for the right job. And now this is applying to models itself. As I said, for coding, I use GPT 5.5. But for writing, I use Gemini 5. Even though GPT 5.5 is better at reasoning, Gemini 5 is better at writing. So usually you'll see two types of models. One is deep reasoning and fast models. And it's easier to always do things with deep reasoning models. It will mostly work out, but deep reasoning models are slow. Opus, GPT 5.5. And then there are fast models, Haiku. And Gemini 5 is a fast model. It's surprising it's that good for being a fast model. And GPT 5.4 mini is a fast model. Fast models are very good after you figure out what needs to be done. So often, if sometimes when I have a lot of work to do, and I usually run sessions separately to figure out what needs to be done and then do it separately. So what needs to be done, the deducing part, I use the deep reasoning model. But the part where it's very straightforward, right? What I figure out needs to be done is super straightforward. I just need it to happen. I use fast models purely because deep reasoning models can do that, but fast models get it done faster. And this is a new thing in the last few months. It was not a big thing early last year. Many models are now started supporting thinking levels. You might have heard low, medium, high, XI. And thinking level definitely helps. I think this is, in my mind, this is the answer to hallucination. So models often, they assume information with the information you don't provide. If you tell the model to, if you ask the model something, models are trained to give you the answer as soon as possible. And one important, both the good and bad factor of it is, if the model doesn't have enough information as soon as possible, it tends to make a lot of assumptions. That's hallucination. Model will assume this is what you want. You can drive the model away from hallucination by explicitly specifying the prompt saying, do not make any decision. Ask me questions so I can help you arrive at conclusions. Now, this thinking level, I've increasingly seen, I don't have to explicitly ask the model to not make a decision anymore. I can just put it on high or XI, and hallucination is not as much as it used to be. Because compared to last year, September, October, November, every prompt I need to validate it for hallucination. In the last month, I never once thought about hallucination at all when I switched GPT 5.5 to high or XI. But one thing I want to call out though, using the highest thinking is not always better. One, it will slow things down, but also it will do overthinking. Something in hindsight, obviously, make the function change. It'll go rewrite the function. But if you put it on xi, it will break the function into 500 functions and think about abstraction levels. So defaulting to high or xi is not always a good idea. What I always do is, when I'm exploring, I explore on high. When I'm getting things done, I do it on medium. I never, at least in the last 2 months, I've never reached out to xi other than just wanting to see what it can do. Now, there's such a thing with models, and there's a white paper Google released last month, I believe. It's called lost in the middle effect, which is, let's say your context window is, the maximum limit for a model is 1 mil or 200K. And the context you provide that you're currently running in your session is 50K. First 10%, last 10% has a higher weight in what the model gives. So there is this huge curve in the middle. That's usually referred to as lost in the middle. So the bigger your sessions are, you need to be mindful that everything you had a conversation with your harness through middle of your session, there is a good chance that your model is not considering that for your output. And that is one of the reasons why it's always good to operate at a lower context window. Because if you're at a lower context window, or less than 60K or 80K, this almost never happens. Model can infer everything. But if you're operating at higher context window above 100K, you need to expect your model to lose the context in the middle. The big curve in the middle, after the first 20% and last 20%, they don't get same weight in reasoning. Now, some models are very good at tool calls. Some models are not. This I painfully learned, especially open weight models. Recently, I switched my workflows from, I don't use plan anymore. I was swearing on plan 2 months ago because I was used plan all the time. Now I don't use anymore. And I replaced everything with skills. So when I want to plan, I just have a skill called, plan skill, and I'll plan. When I want to build, I have a skill called execute, and I just call execute. Now, what I realized is frontier models are good at, doing tool calls, obeying whatever your prompt you have in your skills and system prompts. But open models are not there yet. I can see GPT 5.5 and Opus models automatically invoke the skills that are necessary. But when I'm using Kimi or other models, I need to ask the model to invoke the skill. It won't automatically invoke the skill, which makes me think. Same with custom tools. Sometimes I catch Kimi not using the available tools, and I have to explicitly say, why did you use Bash for that? Use the edit tool. And then it'll go, oh yeah, I could have used that. But this happens after 100K context window. This usually never happens in lower context window. So again, come back to the same thing. Use the right model for the job. There is no such thing as best model. There are models very good at reasoning. There are models very good at doing certain things. So based on whatever you're doing, you need to find the right model for the job. But eventually that begs the question, how do you figure out right model for the job? For me, the answer is trying out everything. Last year, my only experience with AI was Claude Code and Opus. And I swore, AI is very good, right? I don't need any other model. Oh, GPT is not good. Opus is better. That was even before I tried GPT. So, and then I started expanding the tools I use, the models I have. And eventually I figured out there are certain models with training behavior built in. They're good at particular things. Only way you'll find out which models you want to use is by using all the models out there, and which harness you want to use is by using all the harness out there. So if you were like me last year, where Cloud Code is my only exposure to AI and Cursor is my only exposure to AI, there is a world out there where you'll be surprised by the amount of things that help you that you haven't found yet. Cool. Now, this is my choice of tools now currently based on where the world is, at least from my experiments. So don't take this as this is what you should use. Your mileage is absolutely going to vary based on what you're doing, what kind of work you're doing, what you like, what you prefer. For me, I swear by GPT now. So a few months ago, especially during GPT 3.3 time, I switched to GPT model. And 2 weeks later, I canceled my Cloud subscription. Purely not because Cloud is bad. Cloud is very good. I still sometimes every now and then experiment new models. But GPT is very, very good for steering. So from my experience, I feel like Cloud is tuned for one-shot prompting, where you give an input, it will do the right thing, output, right? But I have a hard time continuously asking Claude to, Claude will say, you're absolutely right, right? That conversation goes on a long time when I want to change the output of the model. But with GPT, it's a lot easier. It doesn't one shot. It never one shots. But for me, steering to the outcome I want is a lot quicker. So when I get a GPT output, I'm two prompts away from shipping my PR, because GPT listens a lot more to how I think. So I swear by GPT. I get it from OpenAI. And for side projects, I mostly use Kimi 2.7. I don't think, I think Kimi is very smart. It does very good, but GLM is doing equally well. Minimax is doing okay. The only reason I like Kimi is because of Fireworks and how fast Kimi is. So I don't have to wait for anything at all. I can run 5 different sessions quickly in Kimi. For writing, I will opt for Gemini 5 now. Now, these are my harnesses. I use Codex for GPT 5.5. When I'm using Kimi, I use OpenCode. When I'm using Gemini, I use Pi. No particular reason other than I don't want to be left behind. So I just use the harness that I can use for the particular model or provider. I get GPT from OpenAI, Kimi from Fireworks, and Gemini from Google AI Studio. All right. Now, I'll try to push past this. So beyond this, the same points we saw before will be applied in different ways. So I'm not going to go deeply in the slides following, which is 8, 9, 10, 11. I'll just briefly brush past them. However, I want to take some time to show work trees, because I've been using work trees for a while. I can't remember if it was before AI or after AI, but sometime last year I started using work trees. But the last 3 or 4 months, this is my default now, especially because I'm a CLI person. I run harness in the CLI, running 5 different sessions at the same time and having work trees to explore ideas, experiment things, and I don't have to drive a single session to get the outcome. I can drive 5 different sessions to get an outcome and cross-pollinate the findings from 5 different sessions. So if there is one thing that will make me unproductive in the AI world, is taking away work trees from me. I'm that embedded into the work tree workflow now. So I started using skills instead of using system prompts. In any harness I go, I have a bunch of skills. I can also show you some of the skills, I believe. Yeah. So I have a tone of voice skill. I fed in over 100 documents from my past and synthesized it into a tone of voice. So when I'm writing with Gemini, I just pass in this skill and Gemini writes it in a way that sounds similar to me. And then I still have to refine it, but it's close enough. It doesn't sound like every other AI prompt out there. And now, decision records. There are plenty of one thing. There are plenty of skills that I use. I admittedly, skills have not. I started using skill only 3 months ago. So I have some skills here. So I think it's easier to show it through here. All right. So these are skills I use. ADR is decision record. When I'm vibe coding, I don't remember what's happening, right? So I just write ADRs in the projects. The future agents pick them up. I don't use plan mode, build mode anymore. It's all the same mode. When I'm planning, I use plan mode skill. Once planning is done, I use execute plan skill. Specific prompts on what to focus on, what to not focus on, what to do, what to not do. The reason I switched to skills is because this is what makes me harness agnostic. I can apply the same workflow because skills is standard across any harness I use. And you don't need a model to create a commit for you, but I have OpenCode mobile setup. I showed you my server. Sometimes I'm shipping things for my server while I'm in the bus, while I'm traveling. So in the mobile, you don't have the CLI. So I just say, use git commit to create a commit and push it to the branch. So, and then there is, to review PRs. These are mostly my way of doing things. Over many, many months, I just codified what I do into a skill. It's open source. If you want, you can go take a look. But what I would recommend is take a look at this for an inspiration, but usually this might not work for you if your workflow or how you think is different. So what I would recommend is figure out a version of these for your workflows. You need to have your own skills that define how you do things. Now, on top of that, this Matt Pocock, he has been writing skills. It's surprising that this has. I never thought a prompt director would have 13K stars. These skills, I stayed away from them for a long time, thinking, I have my skills; they're good enough. I just tried them on a whimsy few weeks ago, and I could swear this skill is everything. Now I don't do anything without grill with dogs. It's really, really, really good. So this is how I'm running 5 different sessions and 5 different terminals and 5 different workflows using this skill. This helps me see through decisions that I wouldn't usually see or do. So yeah, but the point being, I'm not saying use skill handoff, use grill with dogs. I'm saying start using skills. There's so much to go there. And at end of the day, I work with a few clients. I pair with developers on a daily basis. So we share screen. I show them my prompt. They show their prompt. One thing I often find in failed sessions, by failed sessions I mean when a session doesn't get you what you want, you have to kill it, right? It's context management. So I've been a victim of that as well. Hit enter, hit enter, hit enter, hit enter. Is the output there? No. That doesn't work. You need to steer your model. At least it doesn't work yet. Maybe will be in a future where you can think and the model will get it in one output, but we're not there yet. So you need to keep an eye on your context. And the moment, for me, the threshold is GPT Windows 400K, Opus Windows 1 mil. For 1 mil, I try to not go beyond 200K ever. That is 20%. For 400K, it's still GPT 5.5 is very good at high context, so I still stay at 50%, which is 200K. But the open weight models or lower fast models, I don't ever go past 80K because that is when models start doing things that you don't want them to do. It will start blabbering, it will start hallucinating. So context management is usually what defines the quality of our outcome, but also in this AI world, if we're all using the same tools, if we're all using the same models, how do we define how we are different from the person next to us? And that's, in my opinion, context management. The best people using the AI out there I've seen, they manage context like a boss. They know if a session is going in the wrong direction and they know to bail out. Now, models are a lot more capable now. So there are, originally it was only text model, but now it's a multi-model. They can take images, they can take screenshots. If your workflow is something like mine, or there are many tools, but the idea is, I think I don't want to show this now, but the idea is models are very good. You can just grab a screenshot and paste it and model can understand what it is. And then logs. You can feed a model a tail log. You don't have to copy paste. If you're using tools like Tmux, it can take the model out of a terminal and feed it live to a harness, and harness can continuously read your logs. If you're using servers, if it can write to a file, point the file to a model can tail it. So get your model to not just work on text, feed it artifacts like screenshots, logs. Oh, it should be logs. I wrote this models to models. So give as much information to model as possible. Don't just stop at text. Throw in, models can handle so many formats now. Throw in everything you have. Models can process them. I'll just go to word tree, and orchestration is something I was really into orchestration early in the year in GPT 5.3 or Opus 4.5 because at that time, models were not as good at deducing the quality outcome. So I always split my session into multiple background agents, right? But with GPT 5.5 and Opus 4.8, I haven't done this in 2 months because most of the time, single session gets me what I want. Models are getting very good at higher context window. So I rarely have to reach out for orchestration. But the idea of orchestration is single prompt. There is the main agent is processing the prompt, but the actual processing for whatever needs to be explored are happening parallel in the background using background agent. That's the idea of orchestration. Now, so use your reasoning parameter reasonably. Don't slap Opus 4.8 XI all the time. Yeah, and sometimes I've got better outputs with medium than high because when you use Copilot, there is only medium mode for Opus, right? So I learned that medium works better by not having the option to use higher XI. And then once I went back to cloud, I switched between medium and high whenever necessary. I almost never reach out for XI because in my opinion, it does too much thinking and it makes it difficult for me to steer. This is something, now that I run multiple sessions, multiple work trees, right? I started using this tool called Super Whisper. There are many tools, even Mac basic tools, and I have a keybind for this. I can just say, hey, I need to explore this code. And it takes my voice, convert it into a prompt, and it uses a local model called Parakeet. So this is not even going to the cloud. It's super interesting, and I love this tool, and I paid for them and got it in my mobile as well. It's using local model mobile as well. So I think in the last month, I don't think my wife enjoys this a lot because I'm talking a lot in my office, right? Like in a meeting, but I'm not talking to someone. I'm just talking to my harness, saying, no, not there. Look at this log file. I still struggle by specifying, apps, my app name, this file. File names are still struggling. So what I do is I stop speaking and add file name and continue speaking. But hopefully, one day this model will get better at giving file names. But yeah, it's especially Grill with docs. If you've used, you know that it'll ask you 1,000 questions, right? Agree, no more. I just agree. It's nice to voice prompt your models. Okay, now before we go there, I quickly want to show work trees though. I won't go deep. So the idea of work trees is, I chatted with many of friends and there are mixed feelings about work trees. And when I tried work trees earlier, I also had some struggles before I figured out how to make them work. The idea of work trees is when you use Git, let me go here. Let me open this. All right, let's just go to this. Yeah, okay. This is an app, right? Now this is on main branch. So, I mean, I use aliases. Now I completely forgot what the main command is. But this is on main branch. Now, if I want to switch branch, I need to write git checkout -b hello branch. So this will check out to that branch automatically, and it will create that branch. Now I can go back saying git switch main. But work trees, they operate slightly differently. The idea is you can check out a branch into its own directory. That's work tree. So here I can write git work tree. I'll just use this command. I'll just name it as DoubleTree tools wiki hello, and I'll just say this is the branch. Hello branch. All right. Where did it go? It is. Oh, there it is. Sorry, name WT. All right. So now, do you see this exact same code, but it's now open in two different DIRs? At any point, I can have a branch open in a whole separate directory, which means my directory is not logged into a branch. So that's what work tree is. You check out a branch into a directory. Now, that sounds all nice and great, but you just need to be mindful of a few things with work trees, because once a branch is checked out into a work tree, it cannot be checked out anywhere else. You have to delete the work tree before you can check out, or you need to switch the branch in the work tree. So now, another part is, biggest struggle for me earlier is, I'll check out a work tree and I won't know which branch is where, and I need to go find it. And then I'll check out main somewhere else. And then when I go to another work tree, I can't check out main because main is somewhere else. And now you might all have secrets in your app, right? .env local, many secret files. When you check out a work tree, none of the secrets carry with you. It's just the source code. So you need to port your secret files as well. So I just figured out a workflow that works for me. And ever since I opted to this workflow, I don't have a problem with any of these anymore. So what I do is, every project doesn't check out the code directly. Every branch becomes a directory. So I just check out main here. So now if I want to create a work tree, what I do is W tree, this is token sets, right? I'll do it also. -b hello branch, right? So now at any point, all my branches will be in directories inside the main workspace directory. And how do I immediately as soon as I create my work tree, I just go to my main branch and I use rsync. You can use rsync and copy files. This command is super straightforward, right? Use rsync AR. I don't even know what AR means. I've been using it for months. I haven't never looked up. And you say which files you want to copy. And you say where you want to copy it. And this will also work with DAs, everything. So you don't manually copy anything. Create a work tree and have this command in history, copy paste it, boom, you got your secrets now in your new work tree. So it's like 2 commands for work tree and your secrets get ported. So PNPMI or whatever commands you're running, they will all just work. And now it's too easy. Creating work tree is super easy. Now I can do, I'm just going to create a bunch of branches. Hello 2, I'll do one more. Hello 3, and I'm going to open all them now. Hello. Hello 2. All right, now main branch, I don't touch it at all. And good news is I can start a session here and I can say, all right, what can I improve in this project? All right, go. I don't like this project. What can I change in this? Oh, I didn't even start. See, it's just because of muscle memory. What can I change in this project? I don't like it. So the idea is I don't have to use any of this research. It's really, I can start exploring. I can open another project in where I can have 5 different work trees. And if something starts making sense, I can keep pursuing it until an outcome. The good news about work tree is how I work is I create a feature branch and I create 5 different work trees from the feature branch. If a work tree materializes, I just cherry pick that commit to the feature branch. Or sometimes if I want an artifact of what happened in a work tree, I create a PR from my work tree to my feature branch. So I know there is artifact online about it. So the idea is you can explore and do multiple work on the exact same code base without worrying about in the past when I didn't have work trees, I'll be working on something, suddenly I'll get, this particular logger needs request in it. I need to send that in the context. Now, naturally, I will think through the problem in the same code base. Now it's just a different work tree. Spin off, because it's not like the traditional branches we have. Whenever you create a branch, you expect to merge it to main, right? But here work trees, they don't have to merge to main. You can choose a particular commit and port it to a different branch. Commits can move between branches. So work trees are completely unlocked. This is how I burnt 80 million tokens on a day. I was running on 3 different projects, 5 different work trees, doing 10 different things. And sometimes you'll forget what's going on. And that's where Grill Me helps. Grill Me, since you're doing multiple things, it's difficult to manage context. So Grill Me keeps me sane. It does most of the work. I just have to make decisions in there. So yeah, work tree is a big unlock for me personally, especially since I'm CLI person. And you might also notice most of the desktop agent applications are also moving towards multiple sessions. Cursor is coming up with something called Glass, but I don't know if it'll still happen, after today's their acquisition. And anti-gravity, which was Winsoft, they're also doing multiple sessions. So most of the apps you use, they're moving towards not running a single session where you see code and chat on the left. They're moving towards, you don't see code at all. You just talk to the agent and do multiple sessions. So you will see most of the harnesses moving towards that. So eventually, managing context from multiple sessions will become very much a reality for all of us. Cool. It's been a long session. All right. There's nothing new in here that I haven't talked already. So I'll keep this short. Oh. All right, I'll keep this short. Know your models, use the right model for the job, and know where model does well and know where a model sucks at. So some models do something very well, some models do something very bad, and you'll only find which model does better by using all the models. And again, at the end of the day, this is still my opinion. And I'm already seeing this is not being valid with many things online because Anthropic swears by not ever having to look at a single line of code. And they're having a big success, right? So my opinion doesn't agree with their work, but I'm also seeing at some clients, what's going on is everyone is expecting to use AI, burn a million tokens, and get similar output, right? Now, there are so many factors that play into that, which is you need to have your platform, you need to have your infrastructure, all support shipping blindly. If you don't have any of that, if you ship blindly, then you're looking at a big failure. So, still, unless your system and everything is in place, AI still needs to be hand driven, right? There's a human in the loop, and human in the loop controls the quality of the outcome. If you don't steer your prompts, then you're shipping the opinions of a model, not the opinions of a human, which I don't think is a bad thing, especially with what I'm seeing with GPT 5.5 and Opus 4.8. It's pretty good, but it's not 100% of the time. Still, every now and then, you need to go figure out where the gaps are. And system knowledge is more important now than ever. Many times when I pair with many people, I often see. Yesterday, I had an interesting session over Slack. I was chatting to one of the devs I was working with, but I was chatting to Claude. So I was getting copy pasted Claude responses in the chat. I was responding, that went back to the person's Claude input. So the idea is these tools are very helpful, but at least not yet. They're not replacing the system's knowledge and knowing where in the system a change needs to go. Because these models optimize for just throwing the change somewhere as long as it works. Knowing the right place is still important. This is one of those things. When I was writing, I realized last time I wrote, models are good at deducing, bad at decision making. Given the last month, my experience with GPT 5.5, I take it back. I rely on GPT 5.5 to make better decisions. I validate those decisions. So I moved away from, I will make all the decisions, to, I trust you with most of the decisions, but double check with me when you're not sure. So that's funny. I don't know where I'll be 2 years from now. So this is a scary place to be for someone who's engineering focused. Again, don't let the model lead the direction. This is also a moot point now, given how smart Opus. I have never got to try Fable. Everyone says this changes the world. So who knows? So models are getting good enough. So I don't agree with my own take. That was just 2 months ago. I can't imagine where I'll be 6 months from now, but I'm super excited to find out. But then again, right? So don't trust AI 100%, or don't dismiss. AI is very good. It's just somewhere in there, human drives what good is. And it's easy to slap AI outcome as slop, but I've been doing this for over a decade, right? I've been seeing slop for over a decade. AI is just 2 years on the market. Slop is everywhere, whether AI is there or not. So just expect and be mindful of that, but don't label things as slop until things are with the model's intelligence now. Yeah, if slop is there, that has been deliberately driven by a human, at least from what I see. So because usually slop doesn't happen the first prompt, right? Bad decision after bad decision after bad decision after 15 iterations later, everything is going to end up in a wrong direction because the direction itself is wrong. That's what I mean as someone drove it to a slop factor. Now, yeah, use all the tools at your disposal. Don't get locked into a harness or inference provider. Go out, try there. You might find something that's better than what you already have. And now, at the end of the day, your value add is how deep you look at the code that's getting generated, or how deep you get at the decisions that get made over time. Okay, it's the same point. Now, yeah, there's nothing new here. Same thing, use the model smart and use work trees, use agents, sub agents, and orchestration. But this is increasingly relevant now. This is something I want to make a call out on. Keep an eye on your context window. Sometimes I'll come back after a session in that runs in the background, and I'll see the outcome and it's pure garbage. without even looking at the context window, I will know the window is at least at 50%, and for sure the window will be at 50%. So from my experience, more hallucinations, more terrible outcomes start happening after 40% context window for 1 mil models or GPT 5.5 or Opus models. For other models, 20% is the limit, which is less than 100K, 80K. My sweet spot is I never even question anything in the prompt or output if I'm operating at less than 80K window, because all the open models, they do really good at 80K, 60K window, but they start doing terrible things after 80K. So these frontier models, they retain the intelligence at higher context window, but that also has a limit. I still don't understand, because Opus was the first model that gave 1 million context window, right? I still don't understand why the decision was made from Anthropic. That's probably something that I'm not seeing yet. But because context window is not intelligence. I tried to host my own model. I tried to host Quencoder 2.5, 32K context, because that's how much RAM I had. And that's when I realized model's intelligence has nothing to do context window size. Context window size depends on how much parameters it can process and how much RAM you have. So just because a model can handle 1 mil doesn't mean it should handle 1 mil. I still think that was probably not. Maybe I don't know what I don't know, but I don't think that's a good decision to let models have 1 mil context window. I haven't seen a single quality outcome at 1 mil context window. All right, so yeah, use different harnesses, learn these tools. There's so much to go in there. The last 2 points I want to leave with you is, I think I've said this 5 times again. I think it's always worth reiterating. Don't bet on the single model. You never know what's going to happen. Learn the models, always have alternates. Today, if Anthropic pulls away my subscription, I'll still be okay with GPT. Today, if GPT also pulls away my subscription, I'll still be okay, but my workflows will change with open weights, right? So don't put yourself in a position where you are reliant on a model to get the quality of outcome that you can. And don't keep hitting the enter key. I think at one point Cursor also started selling keys where you can keep tabbing. So don't go there. Don't keep tabbing. Don't keep entering. Have an eye on where things are going. And if you're using MCPs, go and evaluate them again, right? MCPs, they rot your context. 20K, 30K, I've seen MCPs take 40K context. So when you are that's how the spec works. If you are an MCP, it's there. Cloud does lazy invocation, but it's not spec. So what I do is, if I'm using Atlassian MCP, I have a project directory called Atlassian MCP, and when I'm doing things, I just CD into the directory and use those MCPs. Because in some tools, you can enable MCPs per project. Because some of the MCPs I use, they're taking up 20K of my context window. My sweet spot is 80K. Already I'm losing 20% of it to something I don't even use. So don't use MCPs. Don't enable them by default. Unless your workflow is 100% MCP, don't use them. Use them only when you need them, and disable them. And if you really, really need them, I have like 5 directories where I use 5 different MCPs. I will just CD into the directory and use that MCP when needed. That's all I have today. Thanks, everyone. Shocky, we didn't get to play bingo.
That's because the things you changed explain so much of what had been the question before. We still didn't do hallucinations.
Uh-huh.
But that was amazing. Thank you very much for that revision work. It was brilliant. It just flowed so well tonight. Although I'm hoping there's some questions on the floor. Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask Dinesh?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Do you kind of take the output and use another model as an eval?
Yeah, I haven't gone to that level. So I haven't experimented a lot with evals, because in my opinion, I think evals are, because I always, before using a model, I look at the eval results, right? It's up there. Okay, it must be good. So that gives me a gut instinct of where a model is compared to other models. But for my workflows, because this was the hard realization for me early in the year. Some of the friends I work with, they swear by Opus 4.8, right? I respect them highly. They're one of the best engineers I know. But for them, Opus 4.8 works better than GPT 5.5. For them, Opus 4.7 or 6 work better than GPT 5.4. Ever since 5.3, I always had a completely opposite experience, right? So that's one of the reasons why evals are static. It evaluates against a set of things, right? But if those set of things are relevant for me or my friend, it's not straightforward. So the idea is I don't run custom evals for me. Most of all my deductions are gut feeling, right? For example, by gut feeling, I mean, all right, so these are, all right, I'll show you. So here, these are the total amount of sessions I run. So gut feeling is really cross-comparing it against hundreds of sessions, right? I run these, so these are the providers. I run 14 models in Pi over many months, or 175 sessions. I ran Codex with 7 different models: 5.3, 5.3 Spark, 5.4, 5.4 Mini, 5.5. So, and then OpenCore, I run all my open source models in OpenCore, right? So, and this is just my one machine. The server I show, I have an SSH server there. Many sessions run in there. I SSH into it and run many sessions there. So most of these, that's why I say gut feeling. But it really, when you, I don't know what you primarily do for work, but if you're building anything in a particular language or software, take Node, Go, Rust, React, whatever it is. After you build 10 applications, you will have a gut feeling of, oh, this definitely worked in 5 of those applications. You will start with that pattern. So my conclusions are mostly from, based on how I prompt, based on what I see, this is working better. So yeah, to answer your questions, evals give you a good baseline to get started, but I don't think they should define what best is, because everyone is different based on what our preferences are. Hi.
Hi. You showed the context management section where you have the 1 million
Yeah.
context or 1 million tokens.
Yeah.
Where do you get that information?
Oh, most of these tools will provide you. Let's say if I go here and say, this, I'm running sessions here, right? So
I use cursor a lot.
Yeah.
It has a little dial.
Yeah, it could be that. I'm sure you can set up. So you see here, it says 34% used. This is 34% of my 400K context window. And if in a different work tree,
You use context insight.
so all the harnesses, I believe most of the harnesses, they will have a setting to show you how much context has been consumed. If in Claude Code, it's called status line. If I use Claude and say,
You showed a metric with each model has a certain context window.
yeah.
So it shows that, and then how much you've used.
Yeah. So if I think there's a website called models.dev, and I would recommend models.dev is the official website, but it's slow for me, so I forked it and built a faster version of it. So I'll show you the faster version. Let's say, which model do you use? Okay. So we'll explore Opus now from provide. We'll explore Opus, and we'll explore provider Anthropic. Yeah.
Cursor, when you have the selector, when you select that, you see the 1 million, which is for max, and behind will have a lesser one. And when you actually prompt it, you will have that spinner or the progress.
Yeah.
If you hover over there, it will tell you how much context you have already.
Oh, okay. I never.
Yeah. So most of the harness tools will show you context percentage, but if you also want to look at, because the context window is very different in different providers. If you use Opus from Copilot, your context window is different. If you use Opus from Anthropic, context window is different. And this is a good website where you can go and find this particular model. You can see which provider, and you can scroll, and you will see the context window here. It says 1 mil. So this is a website I use to trace which, for example, if you want to see Opus from Copilot. All right, so here, Opus 4.8 for Copilot, you'll see, notice the context window is 200K, not 1 mil. So different inference providers put different limit because context limit is based on how much RAM the server is set up to deal with. But most harness tools, whichever provider they use, either by default, they will show you the context. If not, you have to configure it. But I'm sure most harness tools will show you how much context has been consumed. But also I believe, this is just my theory, there is a way to see it, but also they will try to intentionally hide it by default because the higher the context window, that's when you consume more of your usage. So there's incentive for providers and tools to not show that by default. So this is in Cloud Code, if there's something called status line. So you can set up status line, and I set up status line to set up show my context window. Cool. Anything else? Hi.
Well, firstly, thank you for really generously share a lot of insights.
Mm-hmm.
They love a lot. I think my question is a bit of extension of what you already showed,
Mm-hmm.
workflow, which you have multiple tabs in your terminal. I would assume that you would instruct agents to work on multiple different tasks,
Mm-hmm.
and then you will be acting like a senior
Yeah.
developer, reviewing each of the tabs code.
Mm-hmm.
What's the subjective experience like when you work in that mode? Is there like define the limitation of how many tabs you open would become hard to manage?
Yeah, that's a very good question because I've also been asking myself how much is too much in this mode, and my take on that is there definitely is a bit of. All right, to be honest, what I'm struggling with the agents is agents make it very difficult to push it past the point of necessity, right? If you give an input, there will be an output, and it will work. Now, I need to push myself to make it better. Because once it works, you're solving a problem, it works now. Now you need to have some sort of conviction to push it past making it work. I kind of built that attitude in a single session. But now that I'm doing multiple sessions, right, there is always this game of you're running 5 sessions, you're solving 5 problems. It's like the pancake kid, right? Okay, one problem can be slop. You can pay attention to 4 more problems. So to answer your question, I intentionally now try to not take on larger problems and break problems as small as possible. So I enjoy reviewing code. So most of these sessions, I don't look at the sessions. After session, I go look at the diff. So I kind of got to a place where the size of problem, I know the kind of output will come. I just don't know the exact details. So as long as the diff is not more than 10 files, as long as the diff is not more than 200 lines of code, I'm okay. That's my limit. And I found that limit I can do 3 or maybe 4 sessions in parallel to handle that. Anything beyond that, my brain struggles to figure out what is this. Well, I need to go understand because I read the session prompt, figure out the details. But yeah, the sweet spot for me is don't take on a bigger problem. 3 max 4 sessions, and yeah, if your diff is bigger, I need to convince myself to go multiple prompts to review it. If not, I know it's going to end up being a slop. Yeah, no worries. Sharky, it looks like we've wrapped up the questions.
Fantastic. Can we please give another round of applause to Dinesh?
Oh, we have one.
Question was just wanted to
Oh, one more, sorry.
Git workflows are there since 2015,
Mhm.
and I also bumped into them last December.
There we go.
I had to do a bunch of things at
Yeah.
once. So I started working with copying my directory and working in
Yeah.
parallel, and then ended up on the same environment variables.
Yeah.
And I was like, there has to be something.
Uh-huh.
Then I figured out, okay, there is Git workflow.
Yeah. It's pretty good. I was the same journey. I was having multiple my old workflow was I work with a few different teams and many developers at the same time. So I review lots of PRs. I spend half my day reviewing PRs. So I have separate repos for reviewing PRs, separate repo for writing code. But ever since work tree, it's all review trees and work trees.
That has been there for since 2015,
Yeah.
and nobody noticed.
Yeah.
I mean, quick, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting how many things AI makes us learn. Git is one of my favorite tools. Just in the 6 months, the amount of things I learned in Git is more than the last 10 years combined. I enjoy AI because it accelerates how much you can learn in less time. Shaki, back to you.
Okay. Once again, can we give Dinesh one more round of applause as he moves up? I'm going to try and take over the screen. Close the night out. Where are we?